Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. I hope you're doing well. Right now, banks and retailers across the US are running short on pennies after President Trump ordered the US Mint to stop making them earlier this year. This might sound like a small story, but it says something huge about the state of our money. Even the zinc pennies that replaced the older copper ones have now become too expensive to mint. Pre-1982 copper pennies are now worth over 3 cents in melt value, and even U.S. nickels, which are made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, contain more than 5 cents worth of metal. In other words, if you're stacking physical copper bullion, you don't have to buy fancy bars like this one. You can just grab a roll of nickels and you're technically getting bullion below spot. But what this really shows is just how far the dollar has fallen. Eliminating the penny effectively makes the nickel the smallest cash unit of account, almost a 5-fold debasement at the smallest scale. It's not quite slashing zeros off of your currency like in a hyperinflation, but it is a reminder that inflation creeps in quietly but steadily, and it really starts to add up over time. Now, beyond just pennies and nickels, the charts for copper itself are painting a very bullish picture right now. We're seeing a clear ascending triangle formation on the long-term chart, a pattern that, according to Investopedia, is often a slam dunk continuation signal in an uptrend. Despite all of the volatility over the past year, largely tied to tariff headlines and the back and forth over trade between the US and China, copper keeps forming higher lows. Every buy the rumor, sell the news swing still fits within that bullish structure. So even though copper has been on a wild ride lately, the chart still points to a strong potential breakout once price clears that long-term resistance line. Another interesting copper chart that was brought to my attention in a recent update by Clive Mond shows that copper's uptrend is actually accelerating. When you draw a curve from the 2022 lows, it's not linear, it's exponential. That means each correction is happening at a higher slope than the last, suggesting that momentum in copper is not just steady, it's increasing. And right now, the metal sector as a whole is consolidating following a big move up. So even if we see a little more correction here, it could simply be a retest of that exponential uptrend, a bullish reset before the next major leg higher. And when it comes to fundamentals, according to Reuters, a global power grid expansion is fueling a new wave of copper demand that is rising faster than the industry anticipated. Michael Finch of Benchmark Mineral Intelligence pointed out that copper is a massively underestimated part of grid infrastructure. People know that the grid needs significant expansion, but they often underestimate the sheer volume of copper that will require. BMI expects copper demand from power generation and transmission to rise from about 12.5 million metric tons this year to nearly 15 million tons by 2030. Bank of America's Michael Widmer expects total global demand to reach 30.3 million tons, with a supply deficit of almost 1.8 million tons. And the International Energy Agency says that grid investment alone is on track to top $400 billion this year, a record high. All of this means that copper's role in electrification, EVs, AI data centers, renewable power, and grid modernization is becoming more urgent by the day. And yet, new mine supply can take a decade or more to come online. That imbalance is why analysts across the board expect copper to remain tight for years. Now I want to cover a topic that is at the very innermost core of the rearrangement of the economic and political world order. One billionaire has called it as it is, saying, if somebody's pointing a gun at you, you need that copper to shoot back. The United States and China are battling over mineral supply chains and technology supremacy because globalization stepped out of equilibrium. And you can see just how when looking at the strategy both superpowers are taking. Trump uses tariffs and deregulation to begin the process of realigning mining and securing resources on U.S. soil, while the CCP is using their near monopoly status, scale, and reserves to their advantage. Today, I want to showcase a company that is actually trading at its 2025 lows right now, down nearly 70% from its Q1 highs. The sponsor of today's video and the owner of the Majuba Hill Copper Project and past producing mine in the state of Nevada, Giant Mining Corp., ticker symbol BFGFF. This company is the only copper company I am bullish on right now. Giant Mining, US ticker BFGFF. This ticker symbol is available on Interactive Brokers and Charles Schwab, among others. Since President Trump's inauguration in January 2025, his administration has aggressively pursued policies to secure U.S. mineral independence, with copper emerging as a flashpoint in escalating tensions with the Chinese Communist Party. Copper, vital for defense and AI infrastructure, underscores America's vulnerability to foreign dominance, particularly China's control over global refining. In February of 2025, President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 14220, initiating a Section 232 investigation into U.S. copper imports and classifying the nation's dependence on foreign suppliers as a potential national security risk. The investigation, completed in June 2025, identified a significant U.S. trade deficit and overcapacity from state-subsidized Chinese copper production, leading to a July presidential proclamation that imposed 50% tariffs on semi-finished copper products, including wires and cables, effective August 1, 2025. On October 6, 2025, President Donald J. Trump approved the Ambler Road project in Alaska, unlocking access to rich copper and zinc deposits and facilitating the permitting of more than 1,700 mining claims. In August 2025, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security expanded enforcement of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act to include copper, designating it as a high-priority sector for supply chain scrutiny. On August 26, 2025, the U.S. Department of the Interior and the U.S. Geological Survey released the draft 2025 critical minerals list, proposing to add copper, along with potash, silicon, and silver, as newly designated critical minerals. One of the world's most famous mining billionaires said about copper that the world needs astronomical amounts of copper over the next 20 years. He's repeatedly said that there is no rational price for copper when the metal is essential. Effective August 1st, 2025, the copper sector, in my view, entered a ground floor seismic level opportunity, marking the beginning of a transformative new phase for the entire industry. What we've been seeing is the very first chance, in my view, to be part of the rebirth of the American copper mining business. We can access it at its founding moment, as far as I can tell. Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF, owns a past-producing copper mine in Nevada, one of America's best and most cherished mining jurisdictions. The most critical part of all of this is that Giant Mining's share price has still not recovered at all from the April market shock. Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF, in my personal view, is my number one copper idea, and I stand by this statement. Howard Lutnick said, "American industries depend on copper, and it should be made in America. No exemptions, no exceptions."
Tariffs will help rebuild back our American copper industry and strengthen our national defense. American industries depend on copper, and they should be made in America. No exemptions, no exceptions.
Trump has said copper should be made in America. It's time for copper to come home. Historic underground mines at the Majuba Hill Project produce copper, tin, and silver from the early 1900s to the 1950s, including 2.8 million pounds of copper, 184,000 ounces of silver, 5,800 ounces of gold, and 21,000 pounds of tin. I will say this again. All of these factors and the following ones below are the ones that led to my significant bullish opinion about Giant Mining. The infrastructure is ready. Access roads, power supply, transportation, water supply, ore stockpiles, established roads access, power nearby, and space for potential processing infrastructure as the project advances. As always, don't buy a stock just because you heard about it here. You've got to do your own due diligence on Giant Mining, ticker BFGFF. There's a link down in the description. So from the disappearance of the penny to the exponential uptrend in copper, one theme runs through all of this. Real value is migrating back to real things. Copper sits at the crossroads of industry, defense, and the digital future, and with the United States moving to secure its own mineral supply chains, we may be witnessing the rebirth of the American copper mining era. If the charts and fundamentals are right, we're still early in this story, and it could turn out to be one of the defining commodity trends of the decade. Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think about the copper market. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker, out.